All right, welcome to the polynomial unit P1. To get started, our goal here is to classify polynomial expressions. Now, in order to classify polynomial expressions, there's several things that we need to know first before we can start getting into this. So, let's define what a polynomial is. A polynomial, the way I like to break this down is into the two words, the root word poly and then the word nomial. And in this, I'm really going to directly define it as many, right? The word poly means many, so many terms. And nomial, to me, I just refer to it as many terms. So this is the way I'm going to look at this. All polynomials are going to be in the form of ax to the n, right? So it's a sub n x to the n plus a sub n minus 1 x to the n minus 1 plus a whole bunch of stuff. And then we get down to a sub 1 x to the first and a sub 0. Whoa, like this looks crazy. This is the super nerdy mathy definition. Do I want you to know it as a super nerdy mathy definition? No, I don't. So let's just start with a blanket example. Today's date is the 10th of September, so we're going to say 10 x to, I'm just using the numbers on my watch here. Let's go with a 7. To the 5 minus 12. Okay. Now, here we have a polynomial. Okay, this polynomial is made up of a whole bunch of different things. So we're going to use this example here. We're going to use this example to reference all of the different parts. So I'm going to read it out loud. Here we have 10x to the 9th plus 4x to the 7th plus 3x to the 5th plus x squared minus 12. Okay, now that we have that written down, let's talk about the different parts. So, first thing we want to take a look at, how many terms? So, a term, anything separated by addition or subtraction. Subtraction, I can't spell today. All right, so how many terms do we have? Well, here's addition, 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 and subtraction. So I have one thing here separated by addition. Here's number 2. All right, separated with addition. The third thing separated by addition. Fourth thing, here's separated by subtraction. And the fifth thing. So this example, the example has 5 terms. The next thing we want to say is the next vocabulary word that we really need to know is what's called a coefficient. And this is the number in front. Remember, this is a multiplier. The number in front of the variable. So let's take a look at the first term. The first term is 10x to the 9th power. Well, 10x to the 9th power, the coefficient for 10x to the 9th, the coefficient, so the number in front of the variable would be 10. All right, the next coefficient for the second term, the coefficient of the second term would be 4. All right, the coefficient for this term is 3. The coefficient here, all right, there's not a number there, but we know it to be 1. And this is technically not a coefficient. It's called a constant. Constant. This is just a number. All right, so this is a term without a variable. So let's take a look at our example here. What would be the term that does not have the variable? Well, this one has a variable, so that's not it. This one has a variable. That has a variable, x. This one has a variable. Well, that one doesn't. So for our example, the constant in the example here, it's not just 12. We've got to pay attention to the sign. So for the example, negative 12 would be the constant. Okay? All right, so now we're going to get into some more of the nitty-gritty here. Let's take a look at what's called the degree. The degree of a polynomial like this, the degree is always the largest exponent. So the degree in this instance, let's take a look at all of our exponents. Here we have a 9, a 7, a 5, a 2, well, and technically we have a 0. So here, the degree of this polynomial would be 9. So for our example, the degree is 9. So it's a 9th degree polynomial. So we would say, I'm going to write this over here. We say 9th degree polynomial. Alright, so now we have a lot of the basics down. There's only one more that I really want to take a look at here before we can really start classifying these things. The next thing we want to take a look at, the next piece to this puzzle, is what's called the leading, I'm going to scoot it up just a little bit, the leading coefficient. And this is the coefficient of the term that has the largest exponent. So the term that has the largest exponent in this instance was 10x to the 9th. And the coefficient for this term, that coefficient is simply 10. So here, the leading coefficient for this example, the leading coefficient is 10. All right. So now we can start to get into classifying these just a little bit more in depth. So I'm using a new document cam, so you have to forgive me on that. All right, so classifying. When it comes to classifying polynomials, we want to take a look at two things. We want to look at the degree, and then we want to look at the number of terms. All right, so the degree and the number of terms. So we already know that the degree, again, is the largest exponent that you see, and then the number of terms. So how many terms? And again, those are separated by addition and subtraction. So the degree, we know, that's the largest exponent. Let's take a look at how we're going to classify number of terms. So when it comes to the number of terms, so number of terms, I'm going to make a little chart here. And then here's the name that we're going to give it. So if I only have one term, that is called a monomial. Right? And the way I remember that, if you think about mono is a prefix that means one. So one term is a monomial. And now let's take a look. It gets a little bit easier from here. If you have two terms, that's called a binomial. You're going to hear me say this a bunch in class whenever you're asking questions. A binomial has two terms like a bicycle has two wheels. So a binomial has two terms where a bicycle has two wheels. So then if that's the case, then if we have three terms, we would call that a trinomial. And then if you have anything over 4, so 4 and above, 4 would be a 4-term polynomial. 5 is a 5-term polynomial. So nothing, the only 3 that have special names are 1, 2, and 3. If you have 1 term, 2 terms, or 3 terms, those have special names. All the other ones don't. So here, 4 terms would be a 4-term polynomial. 5 terms would be a 5-term polynomial. Just as we saw a little bit ago, here we had a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-term polynomial. All right? So let's do a couple of quick examples. So we're going to classify these next couple, and then we'll be good to go. So, example, classify the following. Let's try, the first one we're going to do is, let's go 3x to the 4th minus 6x to the 3rd plus 2x minus 1. Alright, so if I'm going to classify this, my degree is a 4, 4th degree, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's a 4th degree 4-term polynomial. Right? Let's take a look at another one here. What if I had 4x to the 5th plus 21? And that's it. Well, how many terms do we have here? Well, I see we have 2 terms, right? And 2 terms is called a binomial. Well, what's the degree? The degree here is 5, so this would be a 5th degree binomial. A 5th degree binomial. Let's try a couple more here. Let's go with x squared minus 6x plus 5. Alright, well here I have x squared, right? So this, I have a 2nd degree, and I have 1, 2, 3 terms, so this would be a trinomial. And I'll do one more really tough example here. What if we just had 17? Well, this is a little bit different, right? I only have 1 term, so I know this is a monomial, but what would the degree be? Well, I know that x to the 0 power equals 1. So technically, 17 is saying 17x to the 0. So this is a 0 degree monomial.